There are many things that happened during the war, the Greco-Persian War, the war between the Greeks and Persians, especially while Persia was under the rule of Xerxes, that are so interesting, and some of them some of them were seemingly minute or small actions but they had a huge impact on the entire war. An example is where some bribes changed hands, and that ended up making the Greeks fight the Persians. Now, after Leonidas had been killed by the Persians, the Greeks reorganized themselves, and they still come to attack the Persians, or they resist the Persians. But still, the resources they had could not really match what the Persians had come with. The Persians had a huge army, up to 5 million men, and they had a lot of ships, many ships. They were better equipped than the Greeks, you can say. But the Greeks were fighting for their survival. And if you put somebody, you corner someone and they have no way out, the only thing they can do is fight. Sometimes they can overwhelm you. And this is what was happening. Now, the Greeks, now we are at this point, Herodotus is giving us a narrative or a story of what happened at sea fight, where the ships of the Persians and the Greeks were fighting. Now, at some point, the battle was happening at a place called Artemisium. And this is a place, it could have been an island, I'm not so sure. It was occupied by people known as the Euboeans, or the people who are known as the Euboeans. Now, the Euboeans were people who lived there, but all the Greeks had come there as the place where they were going to face the Persians. And they brought all their ships there, and Herodotus gives us it was about 400 ships. It wasn't a lot, while the Persians had almost double, triple that number of ships, even after some of their ships had been wrecked at sea because of a huge storm. Now, the Greeks come there. They are under the command of a Spartan guy known as Ariopiades. He's the guy in charge, and Herodotus tells us how he came to be in charge, the commander of the Greeks fleet, and it's because all the other Greeks said there was a pull and pull between the Spartans and the Athenians as to who will lead the fleet, and the rest of the Greeks said if the Spartans are not the one to lead, then we are going to pull out. So that's how he became the commander of this combined fleet. Now he's in charge, and they come to that place and they see the Persians coming. I think they see them on nearby land, and of course the Persians have their ships in water, and there are so many. And the Greeks are not so sure whether they should face the Persians, and they start consulting, talking to one another, the generals that is, and the commanders and the people at the top, decision makers. And they come to the conclusion that maybe they should retreat, because what they were seeing was a lot, and they could not face that army. So they came to the conclusion that they needed to retreat, maybe go into the hinterlands of the Greek land, and maybe find a way to reorganize themselves before they could face the Persians again. But when the Euboeans heard this, or of course they were there, it was the rest of the Greeks were on their land, and they knew of this conversation going on. They were worried, because they were like, we were expecting that you people being here, we are safe, but you saying that you are going to retreat. It means one thing: while the rest of you people, your women and children are safe, ours are not, because our women and children are right here. So if you are talking about retreating, then we are vulnerable. So the Euboeans then had a request for Eurypiades, the guy, the commander, the Spartan guy. And they try to request him and tell him, if you've decided that the Greeks are going to retreat, at least give us time to have our children and our women leave first. Like, stand here, stay here for a moment, and just let us organize our families and have our women and children leave, so that when you retreat, our women and children would have gone. At least they will be safe that way. But Eurybiades was not persuaded. He was like, that could mean doom for all of us. So it seems like he had decided that Euboeans could, it was better to let the Euboeans, women and children, suffer than expose the entire Greek army to the mighty power of the Persians. So then something happened. Um, there was these guys, the Euboeans, went to an Athenian general or commander who was around, and they went see him, and they saw him secretly, in secret. And this guy was known as the Mistocles. They go see the Mistocles, and they tell him, we've spoken to Eurybiades, and it seems like he's not interested in at least giving us time so that we can evacuate our families before the retreat. We hope you can help us. And he's wondering, how can I help you? Because it's like we've made the decision. And they bribe him. They give him 30 talents of silver. I think silver or gold. I'm not sure, but Herodotus says they gave him 30 talents, and they told him, we're giving you this money. Find a way to persuade the rest of the commanders and the general not to retreat today. And this guy goes to Eurybiades, and he meets him in private, and they have a conversation, and he persuades him, like, maybe we shouldn't retreat, and I'm going to pay you 3 talents. So from the 30 he received, he gives this guy 3 talents. And then they invite another general, forgetting his name, and they give him, same guy gives him another 3 talents. And because these guys had been bribed, Eurybiades and the other general never got to know that Themistocles was bribed by the Euboeans. He thought Themistocles paid his own money to him. He bribed him with his own money. And because of that bribe, they decided not to retreat, and they decided to face the Persians. Something else happened. There was another guy who was with the Persians, but he didn't like the Persians. He was finding a way of moving over to the Greeks, and he found them. Whereas the Persians were planning on how to attack the Greeks, I think the following day, this guy escaped, and he went to the Greeks, and he informed them of the plans, and these guys faced the Persians. The Persians did not expect that the Greeks would be ready for them, and they fought a battle. And interestingly, the Greeks won that battle, and the Persians went back, and they could not understand what went wrong, even though they had more ships, they had more manpower. They thought they had planned a surprise attack, and the Greeks survived. So that's how a bribe made the Greeks to face the Persians, even after they had decided to retreat.